Welcome to Sandbox FOMO5 from Buro Happold. Each week we pick short snippets from our most recent episode for your listening pleasure. These quick listens could be valuable insights, thought-provoking elements, or even practical advice that will no doubt enrich your life and knowledge. Sandbox brings together curious individuals interested in a specific topic to discuss, dissect, and interrogate it. The style is conversational, with experts from Buro Happold and invited external guests who will add another angle to the narrative. Listeners are encouraged to gather around our podcast so that we can explore the latest advances in various fields and expand our collective horizons. Sometimes we'll tackle a subject head-on, sometimes a sideways view, but always with curiosity, expertise, and who knows, maybe even a dash of humour. When we talk about non-financial indicators that influence investment decisions, what sort of non-financial indicators are we talking about here? Bianca, what sort of factors are you looking at?
I specialize in the social aspect of ESG, and I think in that it's particularly difficult to contend with the financial side of ESG because there's a recognition that you need to translate things oftentimes into a spreadsheet so that a CFO can make a decision about the value that the strategy is actually bringing to the company and its stakeholders, et cetera, right? But you're also talking about complex things like community impact, individual health, mental health and well-being, how inclusive spaces. We work within the built environment, right? So we're particularly talking about decisions that impact people and the environment that they exist in. At least within my job, it's particularly tricky to contend with needing to translate metrics into something that's actually understandable by ESG clients, but also deliver the meaningful outcomes that you're meant to be delivering for people. And so personally, I like to understand which ones are valuable to have financial proxies for. And usually those are ones which have to do with expenditure, with investment in supply chains, with hiring specific people to deliver training. But there's the bits that I don't necessarily believe too much in financial proxies in, such as mental health and well-being, access to nature, things like that. And then there are things that initially aren't financially driven, but can demonstrate a financial return to ESG investors, such as vitality. So that's like the long-term social resilience of a place, in that if you design it in a way that brings joy, that brings people together, that has a unique sense of place, actually you can demonstrate that long-term that actually brings more people together, and that can have both an economic and a social return. And so it's a complicated conversation. And you'll find, especially in the UK, that there are people that think on both sides of that spectrum. I kind of exist in I want to deliver the outcomes, and sometimes you have to talk about things with financial proxies to deliver those outcomes, but ultimately it is about the outcomes.
Thank you. Bianca, I mean, obviously the social side is something that you're very involved in. So how do you measure something like social value?
We've developed something called the Flourishing Playbook, and that's a set of design standards that distills the complexity into something that tells designers and other design team members how to actually enact these principles and actually deliver it. At Braincross, we have the Flourishing Playbook, which are like the design interventions, but the Flourishing Index is how we measure social and community well-being on the project. But it is a project that takes it to the next level in that it is a multi-methods approach. It's a longitudinal study. It is very rigorous. But more generally, I suppose measuring social impact, we could do an entire podcast.
I think we've got two sequels already lined up, haven't we? This is good.
EPC standards, the new EPC reform, and measuring social impact. Especially in the UK, I think it's particularly interesting because in the UK, there's national legislation that actually requires publicly procured projects to deliver social value on projects, and 10% value. It's not that specific. And now you've got the Procurement Act from 2023, and that's been a bit more specific. But over the years, you've seen organizations, if they understand what their priorities are and the benefits that they're trying to deliver both to their organizations and to the people that their organizations impact, they can be more prescriptive about those things and what they want those outcomes to be. And so you can measure social impact in outcomes. You kind of work backwards from that. We call it kind of theory of change. Your starting point is, what are you trying to achieve? Who are you trying to impact? And then you work backwards from that in how are those things impacted? What do we have agency over and what can we do? It's a really complicated thing, but it can be something as simple as a number of people from a local school that you've engaged with to something as complex as some aspects of the Flourishing Index, which is looking at various variables and determining from that what the impact of that development is having on their mental well-being.
Yeah.
So the measurement is in the way that it should. It is proportional. But I think it's really important because things like, for example, nighttime safety. That's something that's talked about a lot, especially for like women walking around at night. And someone could argue that if you measure the amount of light that you're providing at night, that you're delivering a safe space for women at night. Whereas my argument is actually you kind of need to talk to those people that are walking at night and understand whether they still feel safe, because if there's no one around, you still don't feel safe. It doesn't matter how much light there is. And so it's about also measuring the right things to deliver the outcomes that you're trying to achieve.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that quick dip into our last episode of Sandbox. Don't forget to subscribe to follow the show. You'll find Sandbox in all the usual places, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Buro Happold's YouTube channel, and on the Buro Happold website. What's more, if you want to join the conversation on X, known as Twitter to its old friends, use the hashtag BHSandbox. We'd love to hear from you on any of the topics discussed.